Hello everyone, welcome to Magdor Consulting LLC. My name is Omodolapo Ojo. Today I'll be walking you through how to develop realistic dissertation timeline that survives real doctoral work. So if you've ever been told to just start writing or you can finish your dissertation in a month if you are disciplined enough, then this video is actually for you. So today I'll be letting us go through several steps that can actually get you through your dissertation to the finish line. Not how it's been idealized in several blogs or workshops that may not turn out to be working well for you, but in a way that is actually workable for you in whatever level you find yourself. So, a realistic timeline for dissertation actually is not just about motivation or willpower. It's about one understanding institutional deadlines, feedback delays, cognitive workload, and the hidden administrative tasks that quietly derail progress. So in this section, I'm going to be walking you through a practical, structured, and fully customizable framework for building the citation timeline that survives real life, real supervisors, real committee, and real delays. So if you want timeline that is not just optimistic, but defensible, flexible, and actually doable, please stay with me. So to start with, you want to map out all institutional and administrative requirements. So for instance, you want to know the date that the graduate school will be asking you to get several milestones accomplished. You want to know your supervisors and committees reading time. You want to know their submission requirements. Some of them will tell you have to submit 4 weeks, 1 month, 2 weeks ahead of time. You want to know as well several approval protocols like your IRB review windows. You want to know, even the required forms and paperwork and formatting deadlines. All of these things are what you really want to know and have it registered with you. So having established that, you want to move to understand your clear-cut individual committee members' turnaround times using their actual behavior. Yes, you have to study patterns. It's possible you are the first student they are working with, and if possible you're not the first student they are working with, then you have much more information to actually know what exactly their pattern is like. So you want to know how long does your supervisor typically take to return feedback? How long does your committee actually need for you to get the feedback they give to you incorporated and you updating them? You also want to know, okay, would they expect just one round of revision from you or several? So maybe you don't even have idea at all. You can also assume maybe 10 to 20 days per chapter, like maybe say roughly 4 weeks ahead, you have to submit so that you can get your feedback. And maybe you can give a kind of assumption of at least 2 revisions per chapter. And why this actually matters is because most unrealistic timelines that we have come across is as a result of underestimating these feedback windows, and they are very essential. So the third thing you want to do is you want to divide your dissertation into phases with clear-cut boundaries. So for instance, you want to write the time that it will take you to get your proposal written. You want to look for the time that the IRB approval will be completed. You want to give the right time to your data collection, your data cleaning, your data analysis. Even the writing by itself isn't just moving from one thing to another. You have to state clearly, okay, I'll write my results, my discussion, then I'll revise other chapters later. Then you even want to write it out as a clear-cut item as the time or the window for your incorporating supervisor's feedback. And why you really have to have these clear-cut boundaries is because most delays happen because students sometimes try to do tasks in an overlapping manner, and this may not work for some parts of your dissertation. So the next thing is this: you want to identify some of these tasks, which of them are actually depending on, that means you have to finish one before you complete another. Then you have to give yourself extra time to get this completed. Maybe you could add about 20 to 30% buffer time around any task that depends on the completion of another. I can give an example. Your IRB approval has to be completed before data collection. So meaning that you have to give some type of some buffer time before you start your data collection as you plan. The same thing, data cleaning precedes data analysis. And of course, data analysis precedes writing chapter. So these are the things you also want to identify and give an extra time to yourself. Because ensuring a realistic writing sequence sometimes is not linear. And that's the common mistake a lot of students make. They just think chapter 1 to 3 to 4 to 5, just like that. But it doesn't work that way sometimes. Then another thing is this: you want to use time blocks based on how much of your cognitive workload, not just on week calendars, no. Because actually some parts of your dissertation are actually much more cognitively demanding than the other. For instance, the time for which you are writing and the time for which you are doing your analysis, the time for which you're writing several chapters could be more than the time you allot to revision, right? So you attempt to estimate this task duration based on task type, not just based on number of weeks. So how cognitive a task is what determines the number of weeks, not just you assigning weeks by default. And oftentimes, timeline will fail because students underestimate this aspect of their planning. They mix, multiple cognitive tasks together, and they want to complete it the same number of weeks that they have allotted to tasks that may not be that cognitive. Another step is this: as you plan out your time, you must expect multiple revision cycles, not just one. For instance, you have the initial draft. Your supervisor has asked you to make some revision. You revised, then you give it out again to the committee. And they also make their own suggestion. All of this has to be incorporated. So you have to make sure that you plan into your time multiple revision cycles. So please avoid the pitfall of assuming, oh, I'm just going to do one revision and that's it. No. That could actually be a very good mistake, and that could actually weaken your timeline plan. Another thing again is you want to identify and integrate your own personal capacity and constraint. For instance, maybe you work. You must incorporate as well into your calendar how your work will fit into your dissertation time. Maybe you have family responsibilities, you're a mother, you're a father, or you take care of your parents. And at the same time too, there are also other parts of the doctoral dissertation fellow, which could be, you want to travel, you want to attend some major events. This also has to be in your planning, because a realistic timeline actually adapts to life circumstances, not the other way around. Another thing again is this: you want to include every administrative task involved in the course of doing your dissertation. I'll give an example. So you want to prepare slides to discuss. This has to be factored in. The formatting, the submission, oftentimes steps like these are underestimated and they actually require time, which if not factored into planning, it could actually delay progress and deadline for your dissertation completion. Another thing you want to take note as you plan out your dissertation is you want to use a backward planning approach from the defense days. We started from you getting all those institutional dates. So now you want to plan back. Now that the defense date has been fixed, okay, you want to make sure that at this particular date, you must have defended. Then you plan back, incorporating in your committee foot draft deadline, when your supervisor wants the deadline, you know, when should your slide be ready, when should you start practicing your presentation, you know, all this you begin to plan back. And again, you might not want to schedule major life commitment. You don't want to commit yourself to things that may not be necessary. Maybe especially when you're going towards the end of this dissertation, because oftentimes to me, that happens to be the rush hour where you're preparing for your dissertation. You have to make multiple rounds of revisions. Your committee is expecting, you know, feedback of what they have asked you to revise, and you want to ensure that the final submission as well is well aligned to your institutional requirements. So what I say is this: backward planning actually, it allows you to factor in that logical spacing between your milestones. So you can actually plan, okay, this is when I must get this thing done. And also try to factor in that last stage where there's a lot of rapid back-to-back deadlines that need to be met. Because a lot of times, many doctoral students feel that once the dissertation is done, especially the presentation, that is it about it. No, there are several requirements of submission that are very highly sensitive and very time, they don't really give too much of time to that time. And if you are not very careful in ensuring that you track all of this, you miss out of your graduation date. And you may have to wait, not necessarily because you didn't finish your dissertation, but just because you were not conscious enough of several requirements that were supposed to be met as you conclude your dissertation. So, one thing again you want to do is you want to create a Gantt chart. After all, we have been talking about actual dates, buffer, and all of that. You want to write it down. You want to have a real calendar to yourself. Some people use Gantt charts that are in a lot of software and all of that. But sometimes I advise people, you can use Excel templates. Just don't give too much of effort into designing a calendar. You can actually use an Excel and put several color codings. And if you also want to use a software as well, that is also good. But one thing is, you will just want to make sure that it is an accessible platform where you can see the start and the end date of every task that you have highlighted. You also want to see even periods where you didn't attach any work. All of these things has to be well spelled out in your calendar or your timeline that you have put in a calendar. And again, to get yourself motivated throughout the years or throughout the months you want to do your dissertation, months, I wouldn't say years. So throughout the months that you want to do your dissertation, you also want to make sure that there are some months that you can give themes. Like, okay, this is my month of data collection, this is my month of data analysis, this is my revision month. This kind of thing helps students to get motivated and purposeful as they reflect on tasks that needed to be done every month. And the last of it all is this: you want to make sure that you consistently review and update the timeline. At the end of the month, you want to mark which one you have completed, activities that you didn't complete that needed to be brought forward, communication pattern that has changed. Make sure you also update all of these things. And as you have begun, continue to add buffer as needed. Oftentimes timelines fail when they are not updated. So when we talk about building a realistic dissertation timeline, this is what it actually means. First, plan by mapping out every institutional and administrative deadline, because no amount of productivity can override university policy. That's clear-cut rule. Then you want to be sure that you plan around your supervisor and committee turnaround time, not just on your own assumption. Even if you have assumed in starting the timeline, immediately you have a real information about their time for turning around, please incorporate it, because this can actually impact your progress. Then, again, I repeat, divide the dissertation into clear non-overlapping phases like data analysis, revise chapter, respond to feedback. All has to be clearly written, not overlapping. And it means that you also have to respect tasks that are dependent, and you have to give extra time so that you don't just move forward until that is complete. For instance, you can't go into data collection without IRB approval. And at the same time, you have to block your time based on cognitive workload, not just by splitting the weeks to yourself. No. You can't give the number of weeks you do for analysis and writing to revision. Those are two different cognitive things within your brain. And you don't want your brain to be fighting you, right? You want to maintain your mental stability. Then another thing is this. Please expect multiple revision. There's actually not much you can do about it, because the citations are not just one single draft. They are built through iteration. So that means at the same time, please integrate your real life capacity. Instead of pretending as though you don't have work to do, you don't have family, or people don't exist around you, you still have to plan around your family if they depend on you for existence. Then at the same time, treat administrative tasks as real work, because scheduling, paperwork, formatting, all of these things, if not taken care of, can actually delay and even derail your strong timeline that you have built for yourself. Then, what caps it all is plan backwards. So immediately you know your defense date, what do? You start planning backwards until the current moment that you find yourself. Only then would you realize that indeed you have developed a timeline. Again, use buffer and real date so that your timeline, in case there are delays, it doesn't make it collapse. You can still make things work out because you have already put buffer in expectant that there could be delays. And a way to motivate yourself as a student is, if possible, for every month, assign a theme, so that will fuel your momentum and even give you more physical, more psychological clarity. A month can be data collection month, a month can be analysis month, and that way you are more focused and energized. And finally, it means reviewing and updating the timeline every single month, because a dissertation often time work, in evolving state. So meaning that your timeline might not necessarily apply all through. There could be some changes that will happen along the way. And I end with this telling you that a realistic timeline for dissertation isn't optimistic. Actually, it's resilient. And resilience is not speed, is what gets dissertation finished. Thank you for listening to this video, and if you have actually made it to this point, please share and like, and I wish you all the best in your dissertation journey. Bye for now.